So today I'm going to talk about the future of the web, maybe, using native web components. My name's Brynn. I am the web development lead at Pragma. We build websites. Turns out we use Drupal a bit. So the current state of Drupal theming, if anyone went to Murray's talk, might know or might have heard of single directory components. These have been in core for a hot minute now, but seem to be the way that Drupal is moving. And they're pretty good, but they do have some drawbacks. They're really tied to Drupal, is like one of the main drawbacks. We can't really repurpose them very well into other systems. Yeah, this is not a great thing, but it solves most of our problems in the day-to-day. So I guess the problem space that I'm hoping to discuss today is that like Drupal might only be one of the pieces in a bigger puzzle for many agencies. And SDC might solve the Drupal problem, but it doesn't solve using the same component in other places. So yeah, web components is a thing. Not many people actually, how many people have actually heard of like a web components? How many people have actually used one? Yeah, that's what I thought. That seems accurate. So what is a web component? It is a set of native web APIs that allow us to define a piece of functionality in JavaScript and use it like a HTML tag, basically. These are the three things. So we need to define a component, the shadow DOM, which is everyone's main gripe, and HTML templates, which seem to be good. What things do web components bring to the table? You can write them to be agnostic, so we can write it once and use it in many spots, regardless of the framework that we might be using. We can use them on the front end, we can use them in like the admin, so that's good. We can be explicit and encapsulate all of the markup and styling and the logic within that component. We only have to maintain one thing. That's helpful. Obviously, they can be moved around. And a big win for me at least is the life cycle of the component is based on the DOM, unlike like writing something in like Vue or React, which is all happens in JavaScript land. So I'm gonna, from here, keep tabbing between things. So if things take a second, you'll have to forgive me. But I have made some demos of a tabs component. I battled with this one for a little while. Which kind of thing am I gonna demo? But I think tabs is like a good example because like there's a bunch of accessibility problems and we probably have to build them quite often. So I have tried to use something a little more, how would I implement this without using like a web component or like Vue or React? I write a bunch of HTML, rightly or wrongly, this is how it goes, and then I might reach for someone else's JavaScript that they've written to make this like accessible, to handle like tabbing between things. Like it's good, but like I don't like really depending on somebody else's thing. They could make upstream changes. This sucks. And then we have this other solution, which is like, let's build an actual web component. We're going to spend a bit of time discussing this and one other option. But you can see I have up here my own custom like HTML elements, and they're rendering. which is like, that's good. I can define my own functionality. This is much akin to the last example, but I am using custom web components to handle all of this. So I'll just open up one of these things and we'll look at a bit of the anatomy of a custom web component. So yeah, a web component is just a class that extends the HTML element. I think it can extend specific HTML elements like the anchor or whatever, but generally I see just extending a div. It consists of a constructor, and in this case, the evil shadow DOM. This causes problems for everyone because you can't penetrate the shadow DOM. This is like a bit of a problem. Yes. Yeah, why not? I can zoom in. How's that? Also, yeah, just sing out if you have a question or if I'm moving too slow or fast. And then I can set some state stuff in the constructor, and then you have this connected callback, which is like, hey, I'm alive, basically. Frankenstein's alive. These are things that happen when the component gets defined. And then we have this render function that builds out our HTML. In this case, it's just doing a bunch of CSS, and you can see some maybe not so common pseudo selectors like host. This is essentially root, but for the web component. And there should be some other ones in here, like slotted somewhere. There'll be a slotted one somewhere. And then, yeah, I'm making some actual elements that will get passed with this component. And then, obviously, all of my logic and functionality that happens with my web component. Now, this is all great. Oh yeah, there's a few. I've split this up into like the actual tabs wrapper, the tab buttons, and the tab panels. So they're all their own component. This is like pretty good, but I kind of don't like it. This one problem you'll see is I can make changes to my CSS here, just so that we can see like simple tabs is a selector. But if I go here and make some changes, we'll talk about defined in a moment. But if I just make the background of this like red. Oh no. Welcome to your styles will never penetrate the shadow DOM. And this is like one of the main problems that people seem to have with custom web components. One of the main ways to be able to pass down styling is by using CSS custom properties. So like this is good, but it requires your author of the component to also be good. Which is, as an author of these components, I would say, I am not good. And I'm mostly just trying to build something that works for me now, not for everyone that's going to digest this component. So we could go down this road and we could like really work hard on making sure that these things are right. My next demonstration is going to be a more desirable path, I think. And this is using custom web components in a more reusable and flexible way. And this is to say, don't use the shadow DOM. I think this is called like light DOM. I don't know why. It's just called DOM. I don't know. Who's DOM? I don't know. Hey? Sure. So you can see here, one thing I didn't cover before, which is like you can have slots and templates in your custom web component, and that makes things better, but still not the best thing, because like you still don't have ultimate control over what happens inside of those HTML elements. But I've converged on this approach of like making a progressive enhancement with the web component. So we have this progressive tabs element, and this is just like wrapping around just what I've decided is good default behavior for my DOM elements in case someone turns off JavaScript or for whatever reason this doesn't actually register to the browser and get defined. If I just quickly scroll to the bottom of this thing and comment that out and save that, we should get a red box. This is what's going to happen by default. It's just going to render my tab content. I've done some CSS styling to say, hey, this is not right. But this is a much better approach than not rendering anything at all. And because we're progressively adding the functionality, yeah, it kind of sucks, but at least the content is still there and discoverable by the user. So all this is to say is this is a bit more JavaScript because I've added some extra stuff and I use this in other places, but this will allow us to ship functionality to our DOM elements without having to define extra craziness through the DOM and worry about styling and things like that. I can now give you guys the progressive tabs web component. You can wrap that around your HTML and this will just work. You can already have your styling and turn off your current JavaScript and this will just work. Because your styling and everything that you've put into here, you're defining, like realistically all you're defining is like, hey, this is the tab list. We should be adding this anyway. And these are the tabs and then these are the panels. And then the JavaScript that's shipped with the progressive tabs component goes and grabs all of those things and adds ARIA labels and all of that kind of stuff. Works with the tabbing and making sure like your home button works and up and down and all that kind of stuff, vertical tabs. And then the developer is then just focusing on making sure the design is correct rather than having to worry about these like little edge cases or whatever. And then if there are edge cases, we can maybe provide those back, create issues in GitHub or whatnot. Is this still gonna big screen? Yeah, cool. So I guess to ship towards the Drupal side of this is how can we use web components and SDCs together? These are kind of like two things that work quite well together, to be honest, because SDC just wants to like render out markup, and our web component, if we build in the progressive way, just wants to wrap around markup. And the JavaScript that we ship with the SDC component can be the whole thing or just an import, and this is good. This means that we can still lean on SDC's like schema, which seems to be like the main reason why this is good. And like modules like UI Suite, which I think will be the future of Drupal theme development. To be able to take your SDC component and make a form available for your for your content authors. And this also means that our component is no longer just tied to Drupal, and the interoperability of this means that it's now tied to our web component that is a defined thing that browsers support. And that's, as we all know, our browsers support stuff back to IE. So like this is not going away, but SDC could change tomorrow. We are no longer tied to how this is operating. So it sounds good, but there are some pitfalls of this and why we might not want to use these things. I mean, one thing that's not on here is I do not recommend you use this for like one use case. Creating a custom web component is overhead and does require you to make an investment in the ecosystem. But if I have to do this in for agencies, this is good. especially if we're like building out common functionality across many things. Your component can be simply a button. Instead of having to copy like the CSS file and any other stuff that you have to do with that, you could just have your like your custom web component, and that could just be shipped to the browser. Yeah, the aforementioned shadow DOM. It seems to be a problem that we're trying to solve, and I think in the future there's a bit better support for bubbling events, custom events and things outside of the shadow DOM, but right now you're like not really able to bubble out the events from inside the shadow DOM to the outside so your window understands those things, which like it's a consideration. Styling, yeah, your developer of the web component should be someone who's considered styling in a holistic sense, not just like, hey, I just need a rounded border and a background color. Like this isn't enough to be able to fit in every site and every situation. And the accessibility is only as good as the person who creates the actual web component in the first place. But this is also a pitfall of just development in general. So I'm running a bit ahead of time, but that's okay. I hope maybe I've explained why you might want to use a web component. And maybe everyone would try and use one in the future. Does anyone have any questions? Sick. Maybe while I'm filling in time, we can just maybe go over some of the cool features that you get with, like from CSS. Like anyone that knows me, that's mostly where my expertise lies. So you can see this like defined pseudo selector. This is like I came across this when writing this talk initially, and wasn't quite sure like why I would have the purpose for this. All this does is like does a check to see if lo and behold, if the component has been defined in the browser. But this allows us to have like fallback styling by default. Up here you can see like I have just a not. I've ended up in these situations where I have like not is where something crazy selectors, but all this is saying is like, hey, if the progressive tabs are not defined, make the background red and then hide that tab list at the top. So like just display the content. This makes life like a lot easier for us to create progressive enhancements to users that may have JavaScript turned off or like have janky connections. And like even because you define your custom web component like low in the DOM, has to be. You can still have like an intermediate style before the like functionality kicks in if someone has like a really slow connection, for instance. There are some other ones. There's like slotted, that leads into slots. I haven't gone into doing any slots in any of these examples, but anyone that's used like React or Vue or any of these front-end frameworks will know what a slot is. It basically just allows you to inject HTML elements into the web component. You can do a check in CSS for those slot, like if a component has been slotted. So in this case, like if we hadn't put any buttons, we could hide the DOM element that is actually rendered by the web component with CSS, or style it even. But yeah, there's a few things that come out of the box. This seems to be a bit of a black hole of time. And I have tried to make this as simple as possible. Yeah, cool. If anyone has any, yeah, Al. Oh yeah, actually I do. Lucky I showed someone my talk before this. I do. Yep, so lucky. In this case, we just have a tabs paragraph and then a tab item. And in here, just has a title and a body. This is like, I feel like a pretty typical setup, or at least like a common one. Maybe typical is not right, but common. And then there is a better way to do this, but in here we just are rendering our, we have defined an SDC component here that has 2 slots, tab buttons and tab panels. Sure, too much maybe. I think like SDCs is like a whole talk. So if you have any questions about this thing, just come and talk to me after. But we have 2 slots, tab buttons, tab panels. That basically gives us like some blocks in our twig template. And all I'm doing is like wrapping, this div probably should be on the outside of this, so that we can still get the Drupalisms. And then our JS file just defines, like literally copied and pasted my code from CodePen. And then same with my CSS here. And then in our paragraph, we just do an embed. And I've done some pre-processing before in a theme to get like all the titles and all of the contents in their own arrays, and then I just loop over them, and turns out twig's a good thing. This is like a pretty simple example, but like you can get pretty crazy. I'm looking into like modifying the actual render array with SDC. You can do it on blocks and stuff. Paragraphs is like conceptually viable to do, so you don't have to do this bit, because it sucks to redefine this template all of the time. If I'm already pre-processing things in the theme layer, I would prefer just to like modify the render array and say, hey, anytime tabs are rendered, like don't even go and fetch the template. Just render out the SDC component in general. But yeah, that is it, I think. The tabs work? Yeah, good. Whew. That's lucky. Hey? Hard to read? Accessibly not included. Yeah, look. Get a better developer, probably. My suggestion for that one. Or at least one that considers that like everyone's looking at a really white screen with a really black bar on it. Yeah. If anyone has any questions after, feel free. Yes, Al? I mean, I'd happily ship this. Like the progressive enhancement really does feel like almost a free win, because you're already writing this functionality somewhere else. So we should be just maintaining, like it just feels better to maintain this in something that's accessible to everybody, and like really, you're not going to be copying and pasting all of that JavaScript into a JS file. You should just be like scripting this in. And that would be better. And then if I have a change that, like a use case that we have a client that has like a Drupal multi-site. Yeah, we can inherit components and things, but like we have different, like each of those sites is like managed by a different team of people. So like someone in team A might find an issue but that issue would exist on all of the other sites. I would love to just be able to update one. It's conceivably easy to move my JS files across, but if I just updated one central repository, this would be awesome. And then like they wouldn't even need to deploy. The browser would automatically go and get the updated thing. This seems good. All right, we can all just stare at me, I guess, for a little bit. I think that's time, right?